Good morning. Thank you, Brian. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, guys. So if you're catching this after the fact, know that we don't sit in silence. If anything, you probably can't get me to shut up. I'm going to respond to an email real quick. Sorry, it's a super punchy keyboard, guys. All right, it's 10 a.m. Yay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Stephanie Saturday. I know I totally named it that way. I can't help it. Um, sorry, I apologize. I thought, oh, I'll just respond to a quick work email. I do it all the time. It's kind of sad. So I just want to update all of you on some stuff before we jump in for the Q&A today. So we'll kind of go over that, and then we'll have a super open dialogue Q&A. If, honestly, if we don't have a bunch of people come on, we'll go back over like the tips and tricks, that kind of thing. And then first and foremost, first in the comments, you'll see the survey. So definitely fill it out. Let us know what we're doing well, what we can improve on, and just give us your feedback. It helps us keep the funding and continue to grow this program, which I just love. I have so much fun on Saturdays. I really do look forward to them. On that note, so I put my slides together the other day, and then I thought, you big dummy, you should have updated it, because this has officially been signed, the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act. It has been signed. It was signed yesterday, I think. No, yeah, I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was Thursday, regardless. So I apologize for that verbiage, because it has already been signed, and I did not update that. Didn't catch it till just now. I was like, oh, you big dummy, you did this the other day. So anyhow, so they did sign this week the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act, and that is going to impact a lot of you, some of you more than others, as with anything, right? So I want you to know that we did go over, I put the highlights in here for you, the part that really matters. I'm going to pull down the whole bill. I don't even know how long it is. The last one was like 800 pages, but I'll read it. I'll go through it and research and make sure we're not missing anything. But as far as I can tell, this is the key, like the nuggets of what changes. So with the PPP, you had 8 weeks to use those funds for payroll and stuff. That's been extended, which is huge for so many of you in food service or food trucks, daycares, a lot of our seasonal folks even. So I want to make sure that I share that with you, because what was 8 weeks is now gone to 24, unless that 24 weeks goes past 12/31 and then it ends at 12/31. So regardless, it won't go past this tax year, 12/31, but or calendar year, I guess. But I want to make sure that I share that with you, because I've seen so many people that it does largely benefit by having extended that. And so it's just huge, right? The next one is the payroll costs requirement. So right now, before this act, it was 75% has to go to payroll costs. Now that's down to 60. There is a catch in that, and I want to make sure we talk about that. And I for those of you, this may be redundant for some of you if you follow my personal page, because I did a thing as soon as I saw it and saw that it had passed and got the information, I went live on Facebook. I just want to make sure I always share with all of you. A lot of people here in this space may not be on my Facebook page, so I just want to make sure that I give you the latest and greatest information. Sorry, guys. So we can with that 60% payroll cost, what you're going to see is you can use that you don't have to have 75% now. You can go down to 60, but that caveat is if you go below 60, none of it's forgiven. So you've got to focus and make sure that you do at least that 60, or it will not, none of it. That's a big dip, a big change. So I just want to make sure, if you're struggling, if you're like, I still don't know how I'm going to get to 60, reach out. If you don't reach out to us, reach out to your tax preparer, reach out to somebody who's well versed in this, because there are ways that we can work with that. If you give an annual bonus, let's expedite it. Let's put it in the summertime, or at least split it so that it's, hey, we're going to do half in the summer and help with the COVID stuff. I just want to make sure that you are really working through that and talking through that. You can forecast it out. If you need help with that, reach out. That's what we're here for. The other good thing, the other really, really powerful thing is, so before it was 1% interest for the loan piece. So it was 1% interest. It was a 2-year repayment, but the first 6 months were deferred. So basically, you were spreading that over 18 payments. So if you got 250K, you have 14,000 or so a month payment for 18 months. That is a lot. That is a whole lot. So what they did, they kept the 1% interest, and now they've expanded that from 2 years, the 18 payments over 2 years, out to 5 years. So they're going to spread that from 18 payments to 54. That's huge, huge. So we'll take that. Especially for so many people who did decide, okay, I'm just going to keep it as loan funds, and keep that cash reserve. So that's going to be really helpful. I mean, if you think about that 250K, that difference it's a substantial difference when you flip it out to 54 payments instead of 18. The next piece is that payment deferral. If you use that loan and you don't do the forgiveness, that 6 months deferral period, so that we just talked about, you don't have anything, there's no junk accruing, no interest, penalties, none of that. It was 6 months before. What they did do is they've extended that to until the lender gets paid. By doing that, with that, then it's keeping you out of hot water for any interest or penalties, late fees, any of that may occur, because let's face it, there's so many loans, they're not going to be able to do this timely. They want to, that's their goal, but it's just likely not going to happen. So they wanted to make sure they protected you as the borrower. The other one great thing, the timeline to restore your full-time employees was June 30. That's tough. That's not much time. They have extended that to December 31st. That is so big for our people who've been so impacted by COVID that, like, restaurants aren't at 100%, or, your nail salons, hair salons, your dentists, your barbers, things like that. So that's going to be really, really important for them. It's actually going to, I expect that part is going to be one of the most important pieces for people. That payment deferral, we talked about that on the other one. I just recapped it again that, even if you're doing the loan forgiveness, there's no additional fees going to pop on you by your lender, because that's just so important. Here's the last one that I don't love. I love that it's an option. I don't love the idea of using it. So borrowers, you can defer your employer portion of the Social Security tax. So if you're over the next 8 weeks, your Social Security tax, your portion, say that it's, I have one client that they run about 12 grand a week just in that part. So you can technically defer that. So you could split that into 2 payments. So that would be, what is 12 times 8 is 96. So 96,000. If they split that into, what is that? 4650. Is that right? Anyways, if they split it in 2, then they would make half of that payment at December 31st of 2021 next year, and the other half the following December 31st. I don't like that. I like that they did extend that you can do that even if you got the PPP. What I don't like is when I tell you all that one of the biggest things I see that snowballs from my side of things as an accountant is your FICA Medicare tax. Please, 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 if you can avoid this one, please avoid it. Because what people don't do, they don't think about is, something else can happen between now and December 31st, 2021, to where you can't make that half of that payment. Then what? That is not a piece that you want to mess with. The penalties and interest on that, they just snowball. And I just think it's so, I just think it sets people up for failure. So if you can avoid that one, please avoid it at any cost. I don't want to see anybody fail because they thought this was a good thing and then something else happens. Because let's face it, life happens to all of us, especially in small business. So I don't want to see, if you feel like that may be your option, let's chat, chat with your tax preparer, call us, do whatever, but let's chat and see if you have other options. I just really don't want to see anybody set themselves up for failure. That's just not how I work. I'm big on let's save the world. Let's not make it a bad thing. Again, if you have any questions on any of this, you can reach out to the folks at Square One Small Business. You can, Brian's email is bcavender@mymcpl.org. Morgan's mperry@mymcpl.org. So whatever you need, you guys, please reach out. I would rather, first of all, there's no dumb questions. But I would rather you ask the question that you're like, oh, I feel like this is dumb, and get the right answer than not ask and make an assumption that sets you up for trouble later. That's just, how I operate. Okay. So that housekeeping's put together. I don't know how many of you are on yet this morning. Again, thank you all for joining. I love, love, love what we're doing. And I want to go over, we're going to keep this super, super light in that, it's very open communication. So whatever questions you have, please put them in the comments and we'll just start answering and we'll go through them. one of the this was a kind of a hard one for me to put slides together for, because I'm just like, what, whatever. Well, you guys are going to ask me questions and I get to do what I love, so I don't really know. But I did come up with 4 questions that I wanted to present to all of you so that we can talk about. The first one, obviously, what are your challenges? What are you struggling with it? What can I help with? What's keeping you up at night with that application or the process? I always ask this, what's going well? Because I feel like sometimes we focus on what's not working, where if we can leverage what's going well, sometimes we can undo what's not working. And then just how's your research going? Like, how's it going for you right now? Is there, what can I help with? Are you like, where are you researching? Kind of what are you looking to accomplish? And maybe I can help you find a different avenue for the research for grants. So those are the 4 that I really wanted to talk about today. I will tell you that I had, we'll just talk about one of the most recent calls I had actually last night with a potential client. And more importantly, she was stressing over how to get grant funding, and she's watched our videos that we've done over the weeks, and she was like, it just, she felt pretty overwhelmed. Like, how do I do this? Where do I go with this? And she has a really great, it's actually kind of in the health and the wellness space. And so she has a really great mission and purpose, and just was like, what do I do? Where do I go? And I had so much fun talking with her, and I was so energized. But I said, you know what? She's had some really great questions that I wanted to share with all of you today so that we could kind of talk about it. For her in particular, being in that health and wellness space, my thought, for her was, I'm like, well, let me do some of the legwork for finding grants for you, because that, I think, may be one of the most daunting tasks for all of us, is just the research part. And I love research, so it doesn't really, and I kind of know where to look on some things too, just because I've been doing this long enough that I wanted to make sure I made myself available. So, for her in particular, in this space, she's got this great products coming, a whole great program that's going to help so many people. And what I told her, yes, for her, I do want to definitely look at like the BOA Foundation. I want to look at the Wells Fargo Foundation, but for her in particular, because she is in that health and wellness space, that I told her, I think we need to go. We want to go to the grants.gov, because there's a lot out there for exactly what she's doing with the research, the implementation, things like that. And that's really important. That's a really big deal, right? So I couldn't help myself last night and obviously started researching for her. But there's a lot. I think that was her number one, was like, oh, okay, where do I find stuff? Where do I go? But then the next part that she was really, seemed to be challenged on is like, how much does it cost? Like, how much do I need to accomplish my full set of goals? And then, she said what moved her most in one of the last videos was that I said, go bigger. If you expect it's going to cost you $100,000, let's ask for 200. Let's fill out enough grant applications that we have 200. Again, worst case scenario, you get it all. Darn it. You get to save more people. You get to touch more lives. Oh, darn. That's just too bad. So I definitely, I wanted to make sure that I shared that with all of you. And I was just so happy that that's the one of the nuggets she picked up, was like, oh, okay. And she said it made perfect sense. But, I said the odds of you getting everything you ask for are slim to nil. It's like the odds of my kids getting everything they want from me. Yeah, nope. So, it's the same principle. So I just want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to leave that money for other people. There's tons of money out there. We just have to ask. We have to present what we have to offer and ask for it. There's not a penalty for asking. If anything, the most powerful part is you putting together a good presentation, and maybe it didn't work out this time, but because you put that good presentation together, you're in their head, and because, you think them anyways, and all of that, it just stays in their head, and that becomes powerful, becomes very powerful in your grant search. Does anyone have any questions yet while I drink coffee? All right. In that case, we're going to recap some stuff as we go until people start asking questions. I want to go through, you guys will remember several weeks ago now, gosh, I think it's been over a month even, we did kind of some tips and tricks for as you're applying for grants, what you're going through. And I keep these on paper on my wall because I feel like it's just so important, and I use them just even in business aside from the grant part. It just kind of helps keep me grounded sometimes. But so I'll just go through kind of those tips and tricks again. And as you know, again, if you guys have any questions, there's no stupid questions. Just ask. That's what we're here for. It's so important. I mean, if you are one of, like, I have a couple of my girls are like, I don't want to ask that in front of people. If you're concerned by that, just send me a message. We'll figure it out together. My phone sits right here, so we can always look at that if we need to. But so we'll start with, that research part. We've talked about it. Where do we go? Like I brought it up the other day. I showed you guys a screen of, like, we'll say, for example, the BOA Foundation, their group. They have so many great things in there that we can go look at. So, you go in there and you look around, look in the space that you're in, the people you want to serve, and find it. What you have to remember is you want to really look at those requirements from the funder. That's so important. I also will piggyback to the next one. Remember, go through that application. Make sure you follow those directions. I don't want that to be one of your challenges, is I didn't follow the directions. I don't let that be why you don't get a grant. Please. It's so simple. My poor kids hear it all the time. I'm like, well, if you'd have done it right the first time and listened to the directions. And that's the thing. You don't want something that simple to be why you don't get funding to grow your business, to serve more people, to, help people for whatever. Let's make sure that you follow those directions. I will say it is so important to have all of your contact information in there. Make sure it's everywhere. Wherever they ask for it, then put it at the bottom of your mission statement. Put it at the bottom of your story and your narrative, your proposal part. Put it everywhere. That way there's no doubt how they get a hold of you. Nothing drives me crazier than when you have something really great to share with people, or, like if I'm sending out a referral fee or something, I have no way to contact you. Yeah, no, don't make them search to be able to say, hey, we're going to give you money, and make sure your information's on there. I will talk a little bit again about the cover letter, because that is sometimes a challenge for people. That, a lot of your grant applications and processes, they require a cover letter. And that is, remember, that's like the front door. Just like the front door to your house, like this gets you into your aha, right? Same thing with that cover letter. We want to state our purpose. We want to kind of briefly go over why we're asking for the funding. Summarize what we want, what we're going to do with it. Just make it short and sweet. But when you do that, you want to make them connect with you. So maybe, we'll use That way, I don't divulge any clients or anything, but maybe I would say I, I got tired of making rich people richer and I saw these underserved organizations and I just wanted to help. You want to connect with them. And that is true. You guys know that's truly how it started for me. But that's what, share that internal connection with them. That's going to be really important. I'll remind you over and over and over, regardless of where we go for our research, who those funders are people. They need to know that what they're doing serving someone somewhere along the way. They want that warm fuzzy from it. They are people. Please connect with them. So let's talk about telling that story. That's another pain point for a lot of people. That's usually when people call me and ask for help, it's usually that cover letter, the story, telling their story, or their mission statement. Oddly enough, people usually know how much money they need or whatever, so I just help them format that part. That's easy for me. But those are those three biggest pain points. So when you tell that story, remember who's benefiting from your services. Who are you serving? We all serve someone, or we wouldn't be in business. Home Depot serves anybody who needs building supplies, whether they be the, weekend warrior working on the fence or they're a contractor. Everybody serves someone, or we wouldn't, there's no business that's just that, right? So who's benefiting from your services? What are you going to do with the money? Why should they pick you? Why should they love you? That's probably, we all know who we serve. Some of us have to, have a little bit more defined customer ideal client than others, but we all know why we want the money. It's that why they should care about your business. That's really hard for people to verbalize. And we're taught not to be boastful or anything like that. So that poses a bit of a internal challenge as we write these. But and again, you guys, I'm sharing just simply because I've gone through this. So that's where I've been. But for me, it was really hard. Like, there's so many great organizations out there. So why should you care about mine? That was hard for me. And that, then it was, I love what I do so much. And I think it's so important. How do I put that like what fires me up and lights me up on paper? I can talk it out with you all day, but how do I put that on paper? That's really a challenge. A lot of folks really struggle in that space. Like I said, I did. Some days I still do, if I go back through it and I have to reword it or something, I'm like, like it takes me a minute because I get so fired up, but I'm like, then you hear my keyboard just chunking away and I'm just like, then it becomes, 18 pages because I'm so excited. So then I have to pare that down too. So it is the challenge. It's definitely a challenge. You can do it. I know you can. That's usually one of those challenges people face in that space. And then let's talk about the benefits of your organization. Not just who you serve, but the benefits people get from working with you. What benefits do they get? If you're a food truck, you definitely speak to my soul. So, as we know, I like food and coffee. What benefits are coming from that? Our daycares, let's use them for example. The daycares, they provide so many benefits because it's a safe space for kids. They get to learn interactive as well. It's a service to the parents so that they can work to support said kids. There's all these things, but sometimes we get so caught up in the operations of it and the weeds of it that we sometimes forget what that overall benefit is. And then remember, you know what you're doing. You may not feel like you know. There may be parts you don't know, but you know what you're doing. You know there's a reason you went into business. I hired a virtual assistant, but I know accounting. I know what I'm doing. I know how to help small business. Like I said, there's bits I didn't know. So that's what I hired Nikki for. I don't know. But I know my business. So they need to have that confidence to know that you know your business. Um, we're going to talk mission statement again. Like I said, that can be one of the challenges. I've had so many people, though, reach out since we did that course and just be like, oh my gosh, this is what I came up with. And it makes my heart so happy. One thing I hadn't, and I personally hadn't even done it either, you guys, is, I have this beautiful mission statement and I love it and it just speaks to me and I share that out with people. But when my assistant was like, what's your tagline? Like, what do you mean a tagline? Who needs a tagline? And she's like, everybody has something. Like, I don't know. What are you talking about? And so she's like, hold on, what? Let me go find what you say a lot. So she kind of researched what I normally do, just my Stephanieisms, if you will. And she said, hold on, I'm going to look it up because I have to tell you, I want to say it right. Because obviously I'm still learning it, but this is so important and I'm incorporating it in the mission statement, which is why I share this with you. Because it's really like, it's a big deal, right? And it's trust in us because that's really important to me. That's something that just fires me up every day is trust in us. If you trust in us, then we're going to take care of you. That's um and I'm sorry, she said it's called choose us for trust. Sorry. um but it's you become a part of our family, and so that I'm incorporating that into my mission statement because that's definitely how I feel. I what good am I if you guys can't trust me? What good am I if you don't have confidence that I know what I'm doing? I certainly am not going to get anybody's grant money, if that makes sense. It's kind of why I'm tying it all together for you. Then, how's everybody feeling on their budgets and that forecast piece? I just literally just talked to a gentleman last night about working up a pro forma for him for his business. That forecast, what it's going to look like for the next few months based on where he's at and his impacts from COVID. And then that email I was sending at the beginning, the email I was sending actually is for another client who is probably going to be in bankruptcy. And so we were just kind of looking at where we were before COVID, some of the measures we've done to cut costs and where we think that'll take us so that he can see that. So, that budget and forecast is obviously super important with our grant application. But so how are you feeling with that? Does anybody have any questions on that? Again, if that's something that's maybe a little more information than you want to share in a comment, reach out. That's what we're here for. We have so many people at the library that can help, that they can put you in touch with me, whatever makes sense. It's super important. So my question number 3 for you guys was, what's going well? I'm going to piggyback on that as far as like our successes. That's, I really want you to leverage that. Let's make sure that we're talking about that in our applications. But as you're going through, and as you're kind of thinking any questions you may have or whatever, I want you to keep that in mind, that because it's going well in your process, you probably know what you're doing. But, let's add that to our successes. That's find a way to incorporate that because that's really important. They need to know your track record. They need to know that you're not my mom would say, some whiz bang that just showed up, like you've done your research, you've done your homework, you know what to do. Any questions yet, you guys? Okay. And sorry, I paused a minute ago. I still have that set on my phone or on my headset, my computer, to tell me the top of the hour so I don't lose track of time. And it still says the top of the hour when it's at the half hour. So it said it was 10 o'clock. And I was like, wait, what? What's that? I've been talking for a minute. So, anyhow, I got to figure that out. All right, we'll keep going. What makes your business special? We kind of talked about that before, but I want to make sure that we keep talking about it. Why you? What makes you you? With me, I'm pretty direct. I always tell people, don't panic till I tell you to panic. Don't freak out. None of that. It's, what makes it special? What makes you special? All right, we'll keep going, guys. And then let's talk about your timeline. That's one, I would suspect that might be a challenge for some of you, while others, you're just like, this is great. I know what I'm doing. Some of these would change, obviously, depending on the kind of grants you're looking for. But, if you're looking for grants just for operational funds, then that timeline might be a little different, but if you're looking like the amazing woman that I spoke to yesterday, if you're looking for grants to get something so powerful out there to the market to help people, then you're going to have a timeline. Like, okay, we got 200K, so our timeline is 6 months. We're going to market. What's your timeline? We're going to tell a clear financial story. That goes back to that budget and forecast part. But we definitely want to tell that story with, here's what we started with. Here's what we're asking you for. Here's what we're asking other funders. Don't say their names. But here's what we're asking from other funders. Here's our loans. Here's whatever. Share that information out. Most of our grant funders don't want to be your only source. That's, they want to know that you've done the research. You're not just looking for a cash cow, if you will. You want to provide tangible benefits too. Sometimes that's a hard one to get our head around, and that, maybe, well, if you're in food service, you have that, if you're in daycare, it is a service. It maybe not be as like tangible as, hey, I just got a piece of paper, but it is in that it takes care of your kids. Lets the moms and pops get out there and work and, do those things. So make sure that you're explicit with that tangibility of your service. For me, it would be financial statements. Peace of mind's a hard thing to say that is a tangible service. But if I, say, hey, listen, you get good financials and you get, your payroll or sales tax or whatever, that's that tangibility. If that's a word, Morgan can check that for me. And how are we going to measure success? That's another one that does challenge some people. Gosh, some of these, there's more of these challenges than I would have thought. But again, it goes back to, we're kind of conditioned to not like talk about our successes. But boy, you share it. You share it to anybody who'll listen. I'm not saying that you have to say, hey, I made $80,000 last year. I'm not saying that, but you share those successes. I may not share like what I make every month, because I just don't think I think it's tacky. But I'm going to share my successes with you, and that we brought on, and I brought on a new client yesterday, or, my team's staying full, or, we got to help. We're launching a free course, whatever. Those are the things that you want to share, those successes. The hardest part on that is getting out of your own head. It really is. Then, we're going to talk again about the funding source with the financial story we just talked about. Share that information. You don't have to say names unless it's strategic to do that. Then I might do that. But share that information out, that, you've got personal funds invested, you've got, a loan from your local bank, that You've got grants from 3 other organizations to help make this possible. What do you have in line? Because that's really important. They want to be able to see that. Aside from that financial projection that we put out there, that's going to show some of it. It'll either show it as income, from grant funds, or if it's a loan, it's going to show on that balance sheet. So we want to make sure that we have let them know kind of, that we're pulling other resources. They're not the only one. You don't want them to be. You don't want anything to be the only. And that actually just went into my tip number 19. So, like I said, they just don't want to be the only person that's helping you. That's the big one. What are your long-term plans? What's that continuity look like for you? That may be, for me, that's not a challenge, but I will tell you that when I meet a new client or a potential client, and we sit down and we're talking, I ask, what are your goals? Because I can't help them reach their goals if I don't know them, right? So I share this with you because one of the things I see and I encounter a lot is when I say, what are your goals? What are your business goals? I just actually posted it all over Facebook last weekend. Maybe it was Monday. Anyways. And people are like, well, I want to start my business. Or, I want to be able to not work my full-time job and be able to just do this for my full-time job. Okay. But what's that goal? What's that look like? The same those goals tie into your long-term plan, right? So what's it look like? What do you have to make to not work that full-time job? What do you have to make to quantify this as not a side hustle and this is your business? What does it look like to start your business? What does it look like to start that new line of service? A great one would be one of the amazing people I met through here. They started online ordering. That was a goal they wanted to accomplish, but they had to map out, what does that look like? You can't say, I want to go to Florida, but not have how many miles, how long is it going to take, how are you going to get there? You have to have, it has to be more precise, it has to be more detailed. So that it's funny because I see that as a challenge for a lot of people. And that may be one of your challenges with this, as you're talking about that long term, you need to be really clear on, what does that look like? And what does it look like for you? I have, well, it's actually on the table behind me. I have a notebook for what next year looks like for me. For what my 2 years out, 3 years out, 5 years out, what does that look like for me? What are my goals for that period? So that I can see the long term, the funding piece, the piece where I, know that I've reached this accomplishment, or I've accomplished this when I hit $100,000 months, or I've accomplished this when I get to be a national speaker, or I've accomplished this when my book publishes this summer. Put these things on it. It has to be, you can't go into this grant space with this application of your long-term funding plan that's just like, yeah, I want to make some money. I want to hit 100K. Oh, okay, well, when and how? How are you getting there? That's super important. You guys, sorry, my Google's going to go off.
I don't know how to help with that. Here are other things you can try.
Hey, Google, cancel. I don't know what triggered her. Sometimes it happens. I never know if I should be happy or mad about that. So then, what's your growth plan? What is your future, that forecast piece? If you get these funds, if you get to extend this line of business, if you get to add 3 more teachers to your daycare, which then means you get to add 15 more students, if you get to I don't know. If you get your technology secured so that you can uh, really move into this health and wellness space for practitioners, if you accomplish these goals, what does that growth plan look like then? What is that forecast? So, if one of mine is to increase our rental properties. So if I increase our number of rental properties, say up to 50 next year, what does that look like from a growth standpoint? Where do I go then the following year? So these kind of go hand in hand with your long-term funding and that growth plan. What's that gonna, how does that picture look? Any questions yet? All right, we're gonna keep going. I'll keep going until you guys have questions or until Brian turns me off so that I was like, shut up, stop talking. I want you to proofread the heck out of everything, you guys. That is actually not most people's challenge. That's certainly not what usually keeps people up. But that proofreading part is so often overlooked. Oh, it's one of my pet peeves. Morgan and I from the library can talk about this for hours. I kid you not. Like, use your 2, 2, and 2 correctly, or there, and there. Make sure that you are not writing it as you speak. Read it out loud, word for word, what you've written to make sure it makes sense. That's like, and I think I shared this with you guys before, but that was the first thing I learned in one of my first college classes. I think it was like a success class or something in 2008. I was like, that seems really stupid, but boy, does that ever work. All 4 of my daughters have done it in school. It's really important. I do it before, like if I'm sending out a newsletter or, whatever, I read it out loud. It's one thing for me to look like an idiot talking to you guys, if I stumble on my words or something. But if I'm asking somebody for money to help fund my business, I probably ought to make sure that I proofread that. Just saying, food for thought. Take it as you may, but it's definitely advised to proofread. And don't just trust your Microsoft Word or your Google Doc to fix it. Please don't. They don't always know the difference between there, and there, which makes me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Cannot stand that. The 2, 2, and 2 still gets me as well, but I won't get on that soapbox today. So just make sure you're using it right. And have somebody review it. Have somebody read over all the information. If you're not comfortable sharing out the financial bits of it, that's fine. Have somebody that you're not, have your accountant look over it then. Or, just pull that financial bit out. But please let somebody else read it. Sometimes how many of you have like sent a text message or an email that totally made sense in your head, and then the recipient's like, what the heck did they just say? This doesn't make any sense. My mom and I do this to each other all the time. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Don't let that be your grant application. Please have somebody review it and make sure that it makes sense to somebody, an outsider. It's the best way. I do this to my almost 21-year-old all the time, that I am forever like, Savannah, A, can you proofread this? B, can you read it? Because for 2 reasons. One, she hates accounting. So if I'm writing something business or accounting related, and it makes sense to her, then I'm doing good. But for 2, she's a communications major, and that kid is a stickler for grammar and all of that. So I'm like, listen, I need to make sure this makes sense. I need to make sure that it doesn't make you want to jump off the bridge. And I need to make sure that it's right. And so I send it to her. And I mean, it's so funny because I'll text her and be like, okay. And I pay her for her services because, I would expect somebody to pay me for my services. But I'm like, listen, can you read this? Does this make sense? I do it for a lot of business plans I help people with or any of that. I'm like, hey, read this. Give me the information. If you need somebody to do that, holler. I'll put you in touch with Savannah. She's so great at it. The kids edits. She gets all these newspaper awards because she's been the editor in chief for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years at her college. I don't even remember now. I just know I'm like, sure, whatever. I'll pay your tuition. You take over the world. So it's really important to have somebody. It's nice when it's an outsider because if it makes sense to them, if they don't already know your goal, it is nice to have somebody like that if it makes sense to them and they buy into it, if they got that connection, then it's likely it's going to help with your connection with your funder, right? Does anybody have any questions? All right, we keep going. Remember, follow up. I want you to, that is the number one thing that I tell people in any aspect of business, but especially with the grants, you guys. Okay, our grants are due July 31st. So they say they're going to start reviewing in September. So in September, we're going to just reach out. Again, thank them for the opportunity to apply. See, say if you have any questions, here's my contact information again. And just let them know that you care, not only about them as a funder, but about what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. I need you to remember to thank them. In every communication, in the application, in your follow-up, when you get that final letter that A, you got the money, or B, you didn't, thank them, thank them, thank them. Manners are free. Manners do not discriminate, but manners also get you in the door for next time. Thank them. Thank them for the opportunity to apply, as dumb as that may sound to you. I hear it all the time, like, what the heck, why? I didn't get it. I hear what you're saying. Thank them. When you thank them, you build more of that connection. When you build that connection, you will always accomplish more. Whether you're connecting with a client, with a lender, with a funder, with whoever, your staff, whatever, connect with people. We as people need that connection, right? Maslow said it however many years ago, and that was forever ago. We have to have that connection. That is what sets us apart. When you have two people in the room speaking, one person is very cold, very grr, and the other person's connecting and engaging, who are you going to buy from? I mean, seriously, if you have two salespeople, my parents are buying an RV. So if they had two salespeople, one was like, well, this has this slide out, this fifth wheel, this, but then the other one goes further and says, this does have this, but you can do this with this, and, gets to connect with them and say, look, Lois, you love to cook, here's this, and engage them in that conversation, that connection. They may pay a little more. They will buy from that warm connection before they buy from the cold one every day. It is what we do as people. So that connection is so important. Remember your manners and thank them. I know it sounds really, you guys are probably like, we are not in preschool, Stephanie, but I'm telling you, it matters. It's the same thing when you go out to a restaurant and you say thank you to your server and you call them by name. Let me tell you, your service level will go up. Why? Because you connect. You take that second to know their name. When you connect with your funder, you will put yourself at the top of that stack. It just happens, you guys. It always happens. It's so important. So important. I just can't share it enough. Does anybody have questions? I still don't see any. One thing I did say, and I'll recap this again. I have it all written out anyways for you guys, but after the live, if you guys come up with any comments or, any questions, please let me know. I will definitely do my best to follow it. If you don't get a message from me right away, make sure that they, that Morgan and Brian know they have like every connection for me. So they're amazing. Um, but we'll recap these tips and tricks. We'll recap. I'll go through it, and I'll even talk about, kind of the mindset I have whenever we're researching stuff, so that you guys have that. Whether you do anything with it's up to you, but I just want to make sure it's available. It's so important to me to make sure that I share what I know with all of you. I had that amazing woman that I spoke with yesterday. She's like, if you do all this for people, what do you get paid for? Like, well, I do fine, but it's really important to me to share this knowledge with you guys, because I just see that there's so much need for a lot of what we're talking about. And we know I can talk to a fence post about it. So let's call that what it is. But, there's a lot of need for what we're doing. There's a lot of need for all of you small business owners and mid-sized business owners. It's important. It's so important. So if we can bridge the gap and bring that to you guys, that's what I want to do. I know I can't save the world as a whole, but I can sure arm you guys with all the information that I have. And I like information, so why not share it with all of you? So, really long way of saying, if you want the recap of anything, if you want the tips and tricks for the grants, any of that information you want, shoot Morgan or Brian an email. Let them know, and they'll have it. Brian, I'll like I said, I'll recap all of this and get it over to you guys. It'll probably be tomorrow evening before I do it. Like I said, my folks are buying an RV, so we're gonna go look at it next. But definitely email them, let them know you want it. They'll make sure you get it. I always want to share everything that I've got with all of you, and that it does include the PPP facts. So I'll make sure you have that as well, because there's quite a few people I've met through here that got that funding. Fill out the survey. It's so important. I love the surveys. It'll definitely be what helps elevate this and continue to make it serve your needs as well. It's going to be super important. If anybody has any questions on the PPP, the EIDL loan, the EIDL, let us know. It's what we're here for. I've seen quite a few people who got approved for that EIDL, but they haven't gotten the funding yet. So it seems to be a little delay there. The PPP's really rolling out. That was extended. So there's still funding out there, until the lenders dry up. There's still funding. It sounds like they're extending that deadline as well. I'm trying to think of what else. If you guys, again, if you have questions, if you're struggling on your mission statement, if you're struggling on like your business plan or whatever, please reach out to Square One Small Business Services, because they have so many amazing programs. I've learned so much about Canva watching the videos. I've learned about the social marketing watching the videos. So please take advantage of that. They're doing such great stuff. There's so much great stuff available. There's a class on sales tax. You guys, that's a big deal. It's another area I see people struggle with. They kind of snowball financially. So, there's a class on how to do that. There's so many great things. I believe I saw, and Brian can correct me on this, but I believe I saw that there's even a program to help you, like, you want to start your business, how do you do it? Where do you go? Do you do Secretary of State? How do you get your EIN? All of that. Like, they can help you. It's amazing. And obviously, I'm an extension of them. So if there's something that they don't know how to help with from this side, they'll reach out. They've got you covered. It is incredible. I wish I had known about this 3 years ago when I started my business. I won't lie to you. I would have definitely partnered up sooner. It's been really fun, and there's a lot of great information. Like I said, I've learned so much about Canva. It's so much fun, way more fun than Adobe Spark. So I've done a lot with that. They'll teach you whatever you want to know. So do take advantage of that and use that. It's really, really good information, you guys. So no questions? I will reiterate, we talked a little bit about it last week about the RFP with some of these grants. That's the request for proposal. Reach out if you need help with that. We have a contact. I put Morgan in touch with her. I met her, incredible woman. And she does this. Like, that's what she does for people. She said, she's done it corporate forever and was like, gosh, I just want to help more people. And there's so much opportunity out there. Don't let something simple, that's something that's simple to someone else, like this is what she does, be what keeps you from getting a grant or from pursuing something. If you're not sure how to do something, that's what this group is about. So please reach out. You'll hear me say it. There's no dumb questions. The dumb one's the one you don't ask. I say it all the time. But please, that RFP is so cool. The way I met Christine was on LinkedIn. I had seen a post. Somebody said, "How do you feel about an RFP?" And I said, "You know what? I don't mind them, but so many people when you say RFP are like, WTF, right? They don't know what that means." So I said, I think there's such a large group of people who just don't know what that is. And I think they miss out on a lot of opportunity because of it. And I see there's a need there. And she reached out and said, she's been thinking that for quite a while. She said, you just validated my thought. And I said, well, it's my reality. I see it all the time. So I introduced her to Morgan last week so they can get connected as well, because again, it's such a huge thing. And I think she'd be a really great resource for any of you. So please, if you get into that space and you're like, oh no, and some of the templates are insanely overwhelming, even for me. And I'm like, I've done this before and I don't want to do it. So she's a really good resource for all of you. If there's anything that you guys see from our old videos that maybe you're like, hey, I want the budget template, or hey, I need the PPP tracker, reach out and let us know that as well. Morgan has that information. I'm sure Brian has access to it. If not, he can get it. And then we can definitely, if for some reason they can't find it or whatever, we'll just resend it. It's not a problem. But it is really good information. I just want to make sure that I keep it available for all of you. Because that'll be important, especially if you got the PPP, just to be able to show that tracking mechanism and that recap. That'll be what catches a lot of people in the end, I think. I really do. That application for forgiveness is kind of crazy. So you want to make sure you have that a good tracking mechanism. No other questions? That hour flew by, you guys. This is the first time I think I've not had any comments or questions. What? Crazy. That's so crazy. Well, everyone, have an amazing Saturday. I cannot thank you all enough. Brian, of course, thank you for being our producer on the back end. You're always so amazing. If you guys have questions, holler at us. All right, we'll see everybody next week. Happy Saturday.